Elvis Aaron Presley, A. January 8, 1935 to August 16, 1977, also known mononymously as Elvis, was an American singer and actor. Known as the King of Rock and Roll, he is regarded as one of the most significant cultural figures of the 20th century. Presley's energized interpretations of songs and sexually provocative performance style, combined with a singularly potent mix of influences across color lines during a transformative era in race relations, brought both great success and initial controversy. Presley was born in Tupelo, Mississippi. His family relocated to Memphis, Tennessee, when he was 13. His music career began there in 1954, at Sun Records with producer Sam Phillips, who wanted to bring the sound of African American music to a wider audience. Presley, on guitar and accompanied by lead guitarist Scotty Moore and bassist Bill Black, was a pioneer of rockabilly, an uptempo, backbeat-driven fusion of country music and rhythm and blues. In 1955, drummer D.J. Fontana joined. The audience response at Presley's live shows became increasingly fevered. Moore recalled, he'd start out, "You ain't nothing but a hound dog," and they'd just go to pieces. They'd always react the same way. There'd be a riot every time. 114. At the two concerts he performed in September at the Mississippi, Alabama Fair and Dairy Show, 50 National Guardsmen were added to the police detail to prevent a ruckus. 115. Elvis, Presley's second RCA Victor album, was released in October and quickly rose to number 1. The album includes Old Shep, which he sang at the talent show in 1945, and which now marked the first time he played piano on an RCA Victor session. According to Gurlnick, the halting chords and the somewhat stumbling rhythm showed the unmistakable emotion and the equally unmistakable value of emotion over technique. 116. Assessing the musical and cultural impact of Presley's recordings from That's All Right to Elvis, rock critic Dave Marsh wrote that these are.
Presley returned to television on May 12 as a guest on the Frank Sinatra Timex special. Also known as Welcome Home Elvis, the show had been taped in late March, the only time all year Presley performed in front of an audience. Parker secured an unheard of $125,000 for 8 minutes of singing. The broadcast drew an enormous viewership, 168. G.I. Blues, the soundtrack to Presley's first film since his return, was a #1 album in October. His first LP of sacred material, His Hand in Mine, followed 2 months later. It reached number 13 on the U.S. pop chart and number 3 in the United Kingdom, remarkable figures for a gospel album. In February 1961, Presley performed 2 shows in Memphis, for a benefit for 24 local charities. During a luncheon preceding the event, RCA Victor presented him with a plaque certifying worldwide sales of over 75 million records. 169. A 12-hour Nashville session in mid-March yielded nearly all of Presley's next studio album, Something for E. Phillips, meanwhile, was always on the lookout for someone who could bring to a broader audience the sound of the black musicians on whom Sun focused. 45. In June, he acquired a demo recording by Jimmy Sweeney of a ballad, Without You, that he thought might suit Presley. The teenage singer came by the studio but was unable to do it justice. Despite this, Phillips asked Presley to sing other numbers and was sufficiently affected by what he heard to invite 2 local musicians, guitarist Winfield Scotty Moore and upright bass player Bill Black, to work with Presley for a recording session. 46. The session, held the evening of July 5th, proved entirely unfruitful until late in the night. As they were about to abort and go home, Presley launched into a 1946 blues number, Arthur Crudup's That's All Right. Moore recalled, all of a sudden, Elvis just started singing this song, jumping around and acting the fool, and then Bill picked up his bass, and he started acting the fool, too, and I.
3 days later, popular Memphis disc jockey Dewey Phillips, no relation to Sam Phillips, played That's All Right on his Red, Hot, and Blue show. 48. Listener interest was such that Phillips played the record repeatedly during the remaining 2 hours of the show. Interviewing Presley on air, Phillips asked him what high school he attended to clarify his color for the many callers who had assumed that he was black. 49. During the next few days, the trio recorded a bluegrass song, film in Rose Blue Moon of Kentucky, again in a distinctive style and employing a Jerry Ray Deco effect that Sam Phillips dubbed Slapback. A single was Presley That's Alright on the A side and Blue Moon of Kentucky on the reverse. 50.
Elvis Aaron Presley was born on January 8, 1935, in Tupelo, Mississippi, to Vernon, 1916 to 1979, and Gladys Love, née Smith, 1912 to 1958. Presley, 8, 9. Elvis's twin Jesse Guerin was delivered 35 minutes before, stillborn. 10. Presley became close to both parents, especially his mother. The family attended an Assembly of God church, where he found his initial musical inspiration. 11. Vernon moved from one odd job to the next. 12. 13. And the family often relied on neighbors and government assistance. In 1938, they lost their home after Vernon was found guilty of altering a check and jailed for 8 months. 11. In September 1941, Presley entered first grade at East Tupelo Consolidated, where his teachers regarded him as average. 14. His first public performance was a singing contest at the Mississippi-Alabama Fair and Dairy Show on October 3, 1945. When he was 10, he sang Old Shep and recalled placing 5th. 15. A few months later, Presley received his first guitar for his birth.
Presley's only child, Lisa Marie, was born on February 1, 1968, during a period when he had grown deeply unhappy with his career. 186 of the 8 Presley singles released between January 1967 and May 1968. Only 2 charted in the top 40, none higher than number 28. 187, his forthcoming soundtrack album, Speedway, would rank at number 82. Parker had already shifted his plans to television. He maneuvered a deal with NBC that committed the network to finance a theatrical feature and broadcast a Christmas special. 188. Recorded in late June in Burbank, California, the special, simply called Elvis, aired on December 3, 1968. Later known as the 68 Comeback Special, the show featured lavishly staged studio productions as well as songs performed with a band in front of a small audience, Presley's first live performances since 1961. The live segments saw Presley dressed in tight black leather, singing and playing guitar in an uninhibited style reminiscent of his early rock and roll days. D.
Buoyed by the experience of the Comeback Special, Presley engaged in a prolific series of recording sessions at American Sound Studio, which led to the acclaim from Elvis in Memphis. Released in June 1969, it was his first secular, non-soundtrack album from a dedicated period in the studio in 8 years. As described by Marsh, it is a masterpiece in which Presley immediately catches up with pop music trends that have seemed to pass by during the years. He sings country songs, soul songs, and rockers with real conviction, a stunning achievement. 194, the album featured the hit single In the Ghetto, issued in April, which reached number 3 on the pop chart, Presley's first non-gospel top 10 hit since Bossa Nova Baby in 1963. Further hit singles were culled from the American Sound Sessions, Suspicious Minds, Don't Cry Daddy, and Kentucky Rain. 195. Presley was keen to resume regular live performing. Following the success of the Comeback Special, offers came in. On December 21, 1970, Presley engineered a meeting with U.S. President Richard Nixon at the White House, where he explained how he believed he could reach out to the hippies to help combat the drug culture and the president of course. He asked Nixon for a Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs badge to signify official sanction of his efforts. Nixon, who apparently found the encounter awkward, expressed a belief that Presley could send a positive message to young people, and that it was, therefore, important that he retain his credibility. 215. Presley told Nixon that the Beatles, whose songs he regularly performed in concert during the era, 216, exemplified what he saw as a trend of anti-Americanism. 217. Presley and his friends previously had a 4-hour get-together with the Beatles at his home in Bel Air, California, in August 1965. Paul McCartney later said that he felt a bit betrayed. The great joke was that we were taking illegal drugs, and look what happened to him.
MJ.
MGM filmed Presley in April 1972 for Elvis on Tour, which went on to win the Golden Globe Award for Best Documentary Film for that year's Golden Globe Awards. His gospel album He Touched Me, released that month, would earn him his second Grammy Award for Best Inspirational Performance. A 14-day tour commenced with an unprecedented 4 consecutive sold-out shows at New York's Madison Square Garden, 224. The evening concert on July 10th was issued in LP form a week later. Elvis, as recorded at Madison Square Garden, became one of Presley's biggest-selling albums. After the tour, the single, Burning Love, was released, Presley's last top 10 hit on the US pop chart. The most exciting single Elvis has made since All Shook Up, wrote rock critic Robert Christgau. Presley and his wife had become increasingly distant, barely cohabiting. In 1971, an affair he had with Joyce Bova resulted, unbeknownst to him, in her pregnancy and an abortion. 1973 to 1977, health deterioration and death. Medical crises and last studio sessions. Presley's divorce was finalized on October 9, 1973, 245. By then, his health was in serious decline. Twice during the year he overdosed on barbiturates, spending 3 days in a coma in his hotel suite after the first incident. In late 1973, he was hospitalized from the effects of a pethidine addiction. According to his primary care physician, George C. Nicopolos, Presley felt that by getting drugs from a doctor, he wasn't the common everyday junkie getting something off the street. 246. Since his comeback, he had staged more live shows with each passing year, and 1973 saw 168 concerts, his busiest schedule ever. 247. Despite his failing health, he undertook another intensive touring schedule in 1974. 248. Presley's condition declined precipitously that September. Keyboardist Tony Brown remembered his arrival at a University of Maryland concert. He fell out of the limousine, to his knees.
Journalist Tony Sherman wrote that, by early 1977, Presley had become a grotesque caricature of his sleek, energetic former self. Grossly overweight, his mind dulled by the pharmacopoeia he daily ingested, he was barely able to pull himself through his abbreviated concerts. 259. According to Andy Green of Rolling Stone, Presley's final performances were mostly sad, sloppy affairs were bloated, drugged. Presley struggled to remember his lyrics and get through the night without collapsing. Most everything from the final 3 years of his life is sad and hard to watch. 260. In Alexandria, Louisiana, he was on stage for less than an hour and was impossible to understand. 261. On March 31st, he cancelled a performance in Baton Rouge. Unable to get out of his hotel bed, 4 shows had to be cancelled and rescheduled. 262. On August 16, 1977, Presley was scheduled on an evening flight out of Memphis to Portland, Maine, to begin another tour. That afternoon, however, his fiancée Ginger Alden discovered him unresponsive on the bathroom floor of his Graceland mansion. 267. Attempts to revive him failed, and he was pronounced dead at Baptist Memorial Hospital at 3:30 p.m. 268. He was 42. 269. President Jimmy Carter issued a statement that credited Presley with having permanently changed the face of American popular culture. 270. Thousands of people gathered outside Graceland to view the open casket. One of Presley's cousins, Billy Mann, accepted $18,000, equivalent to $91,000 in 2023, to secretly photograph the body. The picture appeared on the cover of the National Enquirer's biggest-selling issue ever. 271. Alden struck a $105,000, equivalent to $528,000 in 2023, deal with the Enquirer for her story, but settled for less than she broke her exclusivity agreement. 272. Presley left her nothing of his.
Lisa Marie Presley, February 1st, 1968 to January 12, 2023, was an American singer-songwriter. She was the only child of singer and actor Elvis Presley and actress Priscilla Presley, as well as the sole heir to her father's estate after her grandfather and her great-grandmother died. Her musical career consisted of 3 studio albums: To Whom It May Concern, 2003, Now What,